January 2nd, 2024. First time I've had to say 2024. I didn't blow it. But this is the regular school board regular workshop to order. We have all board members are present, and filling in for Superintendent Wagner, who is ill, is Ms. Smeshek. She's filling in. She's our assistant superintendent. So we have this 4 items on our work agenda or our workshop tonight, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, do you have anything else you'd like to add or say anything before we start?
No, and I'm.
You good? I can't punch all back with that, didn't I?
You did. It wasn't on the agenda for the night.
We'll start with the high school course catalog presentation. Who's got the?
Nick and I will do that. If Lisa can pull up the presentation.
Do we have access to click from here? Is that?
Lisa will move it.
Introduce yourselves for everybody that's out there in EV land.
Yeah, Mick Wendland, Flight Path Coordinator, Ribbon Public Schools.
Joshua Fuchs, High School Principal.
So we just wanted to give kind of an update about what will be new for students coming out this spring. So we're not going to go through the whole document that's in that you have before you, just kind of the updated highlights, and then talk about our registration process.
Yeah.
Lisa, if you click next slide. So kind of our 5 main areas, just our process for how we selected courses and changes in course options for students. We'll go over the new courses that we've had, courses that we've removed, and then our registration planning process, and then things that we're thinking about as we go through in the future. Next slide. So we started the conversation about new courses earlier in the school year. So we reached out to departments just to say our process is beginning. If there's new courses that we want to have out there, just review the content that you have, how you're describing your courses, anything that we want to edit. New courses were then sent to the Department of Teaching and Learning, and our team reviewed that. I sit on that team as well. So we took a look at the courses that came in, had a set of criteria, talked about strengths that it was going to add to our school, what the capacity of different departments would be. We did not approve every course that came through, but we did have several that came through as well. And then that came back to the high school administration for final approval. Just thank you to the rest of the Department of Teaching and Learning for their assistance in that process.
Absolutely. Next slide.
Some new courses that we have for this year. Danny DeWitt is our new Phi-Ed teacher. She is a rock star down in the gym, and she has some really great ideas on how to kind of reignite that department. One thing that she was seeing is we're heavy on making sure that we're fulfilling the requirements for our 9th graders to come through, but there aren't a lot of students that return in the physical education department, but there's an interest that's there. And so she wanted to add some more course options that would allow students to have more physical education opportunities in the future. So we're looking at adding a second ring to our individual and dual sports and our team sports. So an opportunity for students to kind of take that next level in those. And then she also wanted to add in a lifetime fitness class. So she kind of saw a theme with the classes that we offer. There's a lot of competitiveness, there's a lot of strength and training, there's a lot of things for kind of our real rigorous athletes. And she wanted to provide a space for students that want to focus on healthy activities and make sure that they can have a course that meets the standards in education or physical education and health, and have a space to do that as well. The one drawback in the department of that size is there's just not a ton of FTE that's there. So we're offering those courses on a rotating basis. So they'll be offered some years and then not other years, so that we can allow students to have opportunities to take that class. And that's what we've tried to highlight with all of our courses that are offered on opposite years, is so students can kind of plan ahead 2, 3, 4 years, so they kind of know when courses are expected to be offered. The other class that's been offered is a new video game design course in the business and marketing department. So we have Rose Evers is a new addition to our district this year. She's really excited about this course, thinks it's a great way to tap into a high student interest area and then build in some programming, some coding, and some of the other online graphic opportunities. So we're excited to see some potential for that class next year as well. In the science department, we don't have new courses, but there's kind of a shift that's happening. So we have changed the name from environmental chemistry to chemistry concepts. The reason for that is we had students that were really excited about environmental science, but there isn't a huge environmental component within environmental chemistry. So we wanted to make sure that we're adequately reflecting what the offering is. So we're still meeting the chemistry requirement for graduation, but we just changed that name. For students that are interested in a career in environmental science, we would recommend to take the more rigorous of the two chemistry options, because that'll be in better alignment with what they might see post-secondary. With the change in our chemistry department, Jeff Chalmers is retiring this year, and so Dr. Sormanen will be stepping into some of his shoes. Because of his credentials, we can now offer our chemistry class to earn college credit at the same time. So students will have that option with all of our college in the schools courses. The students are not required to take the college credit, but now any student that is, mostly juniors, that's going to take chemistry has the option to get college credit at the same time through Minnesota State College Southeast. So great opportunity for those that are going to continue on in schools that will accept that credit as well. So I can pause there.
Any questions?
I get excited to talk fast, so.
Have you had any further discussions on more computer science or coding type classes? That's a statewide discussion about Minnesota's lacking in that.
We are last in the nation in terms of information technology. We have a computer science and programming course that we offer on every other year.
It's a lot of it's driven by student interest. And so like, that's one of the factors. Like if you look at our entire course handbook, we have a ton of courses that are available. And there's often courses that we get some sign up for and we can't run them at the numbers that they're currently at. So we are constantly trying to gauge that and like what the interest is in it. I know with some of our community partners, we're aware that there has been times when coding has been a very popular interest area. We haven't always had the right experienced teacher that's able to teach that, and what would it replace. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about our registration process and our forward thinking. But this was really an opportunity for staff to drive new course availability and like what's being offered. And as you can see, we didn't do a lot of deletion of any courses out of the handbook at this time. Next slide.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Lifetime Fitness, that's not an association to the actual Lifetime Fitness.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No, just trying to find a name that any of our physical education classes are meant to guide towards like an opportunity to be physically engaged your entire life and what does a healthy life look like. But what we find is we have students that are in physical education that are athletes, they're on teams, they play competitively, and then you have students that are shy to engage as a result of that because they have a perception that they're like not adequate enough, which just isn't true. They just don't have as much experience. So creating a separate space for that where the journey through like health and physical education is a little bit different was her point of that. Really seeing an aspect of like, how do I engage my kids in some of like the individual and team sport activities that they don't have a ton of experience compared to some of their peers. So it creates a space for kids who still need to have like, what does it look like to be a healthy adult beyond high school? A place and space for that to occur. We can certainly talk about the name change if there's any concerns about it, but thank you for pointing that out. Yeah.
Did not think about that.
Yeah. There's not any Lifetime Fitnesses here in Bergman, are there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we should red time.
Anytime, right? Anytime Fitness.
Don't call it anytime.
Yeah.
Don't call it Anytime Fitness.
Yeah, for Wednesday.
Any other questions before we move to the next slide? Go ahead.
So on this one, we just had a couple of name changes. So I talked about what's happening in chemistry, and then the other change is our English department with our world literature courses. So the request here had been for World Lit 1, historically has covered British literature, and so they just wanted the name to adequately reflect what's being taught in that course. So we went back over the past few course catalogs, and that course description has been consistent. So we are changing that from World Lit 1 to Brit Lit. And then World Lit 2, we're changing to global literature. They wanted to keep it as world literature, but we just figured that would be confusing with transcripts and registration, so just a new name change. So the content will remain the same, just a little bit more transparency in the course content through the name.
Next slide. We already talked about the science department name change.
So courses removed, we removed speech as an elective option from the language arts department. Speech is one of the primary standards within English language arts. It's just making sure that we're embedding speech throughout all of our language arts courses, so not having it as a separate course on its own. And then just in the course catalog itself, we removed REACH and the ELA courses from the booklet itself, just because we had students that were signing up for services that they weren't necessarily needing or qualifying for. They read the course description and were thinking, oh, that's something I want to do, but there's a process behind it. So we're not removing any of our services or our offerings. We're just wanting to make sure that as students are looking through, that they have that. They would work with the REACH coordinator, with their English language learning coordinator. And same thing with our special education classes. Those were not included in last year's course catalog or this year. We just want to make sure that the teams are making sure that they're getting into the right courses from one year to the next.
Any questions? Yes.
If a student, so if it's not listed in the catalog, would a student necessarily know that that's even something that is an option for them that's not listed?
I don't know if you want to speak to REACH.
Yeah, I put out a survey to staff of students who think that they could be benefited by being involved in the REACH program. And then I work with the 8th grade counselor to reach out to our 9th grade students. So there is a process they know. We're in year 4, I believe, of REACH. So it's established and people know what the purpose of it is, what the goal is, and they're pretty open to coming to me to find out if it's something that fits with them and what their needs are. We don't just register anybody. They have to sit down with me and or their counselor to talk about what's going to happen in the class and what their expectations are. So it's not just another fluff for them. So, yeah.
I think to your point though, like how we make sure we communicate like what are our support services and like what they look like so that they understand. Like one of the reasons we took it out is there was a misunderstanding of what it was. But I think families still have a right to know like the way that we provide additional services when students are struggling with success. And so we can certainly look forward about like how do we communicate like what REACH is, even though it's not something that they register for.
Right, yeah. I think that was more of my concern is if it's something that's not readily known, but a parent says, hey, you know what, my kid could really utilize this extra support, you know.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that, so one of the things that we're doing with our process is, as you know, as we presented at the beginning of the year, we talked about that we implemented BAR this year. And so BAR is one of our wraparound services where we're identifying students early that have needs, trying to meet those tier 1 needs. They move up to tier 2 or tier 3 needs. That's where something like REACH would come onto the table as a conversation piece where like it's part of our process and system, but it's still important that we communicate out about like what are some of the things that we have built into the school already that are meant to support kids. Because we have a lot of students that do go through REACH and there are some requirements to access REACH before a student can, which is why it just needed to come out of the course handbook.
Okay.
Next slide. So just talk about our registration process and some of the adjustments that we're making. So we are fortunate enough to have a 3rd counselor. We have a better ratio of student to staff than most schools do. I'm sure we could all agree that it could be better, but it is nonetheless a good ratio to have. And so our counselors, my ask of them and their desire is that they actually get to know their students really well. And so our 8th grade counselor only works with 8th graders. She'll continue to work with only 8th graders in the future as she helps them bridge that learning from middle school to high school. But then our 2 other counselors will loop with 3rd grades. So they're going to work with the same kid all the way till graduation from 9th through 12th. So that's the process and the way that we're set up right now. We did that intentionally. It took a little bit of work for us all to agree that that would be in the best interest of students and families. But once we got there, this is what one of the benefits out of it is that our counselors will meet one-to-one with students throughout the year to make sure they understand what the student's 4-year plan is. It's really important to what Nick does with the flight pass as we begin to like learn interests. Like every day that I connect with a kid and I learn something about they're interested in, like I run down and tell Nick so he can connect with them. We've had probably 3 or 4 kids we've talked about this year that I've just casually had conversations with. I hope that that becomes much more intentional with our counselors. And so our whole registration process will probably look a little bit different. Not that kids won't physically go in and register, but they will have had time with their counselors, both in this upcoming registration and then our registration for our courses for next fall, to really understand like what their 4-year plan is. The other part of that is to make sure that we're helping them understand the language that's in that course handbook. As you can see, they sign up based on title sometime and not necessarily what the course describes, and making sure that they're being very thorough readers and understanding what kind of courses they're signing up for and like what that will look like for them. So there'll still be a registration day for them, but they will meet with their counselors. They'll start putting the plan together. That plan, that piece of paper, the counselor would have from 9th through 12th, make adjustments as needed, and then things like reach if necessary. They'll be able to highlight that on that 4-year plan and make sure that the families understand like where the kid might have a gap that they need to make up so that we're on track for graduation all the way through. The other part of that is really helping our kids understand something that we'll be making adjustments on the next couple of years is in times where it gets lean, we don't want to reduce the course offerings we have. We want to put them on a cycle to make sure that they're always available and the kids know when they're going to be able to access them. We have some courses that are really popular that we could run nonstop, but they often end up at the expense of some other course. And we have courses that we do have kids interested in, but not quite enough numbers to always run them. But we know if we didn't put it against this other course, it would probably fill up. And so as we start to cycle things out and make sure that we offer the wide range of courses that we do have in our course handbook, that we'll have more opportunities for kids to access things at the right time, and that it gets them more in line with their flight path goals for the future.
One thing I'm real excited about with this is through the Flight Paths booklet, and we tried to highlight as students have a career interest, what are the courses that we offer to help students be intentional in their course selection. But there still comes that gap between students looking at the booklet or going through it, and then we see a lot of missed elective opportunities that students really could add to their benefit before they go on for graduation. I met with a student this year who's interested in a career that involves a high level of math, but he chose not to do a math class this year when he registered last year, and we caught it too late into the process. The semester already started, we were a month in, and it's going to set him back as he pursues that opportunity. So I think more of these conversations only help students understand, as we look at your plans for after graduation, and not that all are needing, more math, but we just want to make sure that they're really understanding, you have to be intentional with your course selection as it better prepares you for the future. Next
Yes.
slide.
Can you speak at all to, I've heard some comments about sometimes, when a student is trying to align their schedule between high school and some of the PSEO classes offered through the tech college especially, that those schedules aren't always in alignment. And so when the tech college registration period is open to register, our registration isn't open and our courses aren't even listed. And so students are kind of struggling, to know how to pick from both options. And then one closes and then they can't register before, you know what I'm saying? It's been a struggle, I think, for students to align both of those schedules. And I'm hoping that there is a fix for that or how to.
We're not on the same calendar, unfortunately, is the biggest issue. Actually, one of the things that we have a lot of really great opportunities here in Red Wing for our students, particularly with Southeast and our partnership with them. But their registration is at a different time than ours. Often what we end up having is kids don't know if they're going to be able to get into a PSEO class. So they'll be registered for something with us too. And we end up dropping them out of that because they've got into their PSEO class after the fact. So the timelines don't currently match up. We are in communication about how to have cleaner processes with them. Dawn has been really helpful to us and better to understand their processes and where it works with us. If you recall at our teacher conferences in the fall, we offered a PSEO session. The purpose of that session was to help parents and families understand what the college's process is, because we actually don't have any control over it. That's their entire process that our students do have the benefit of, and we end up working around it as much as possible because it's an incredible opportunity for our kids to earn college credit. And so we try to work with that as much as possible, even though it does create, quite honestly, some more work for our counselors after the fact when kids get into PSEO classes that they're not sure they're going to get into sometimes, where we end up dropping and having to consolidate classes or move classes around. We're getting better at it. We still have some work to do around that. We offered the information session. We had actually one of their staff members come out and put that together. We did a Zoom session for it so families could access it. Sent the recording out since then. There's still some more work to do around that, but a lot of it is just the fact that calendars, they're on a different schedule than we are for registration process. And
Is there a way though, like my understanding is like we just don't have our schedule, our course offerings or registration out in early enough? Is there a way to at least get those offerings out early enough so that they can start prioritizing and decision making?
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? They don't necessarily have to register, but at least they can have a thought process of what will be offered and what they want to take concurrently or.
that's the work we're doing right now. So one of the things that we have a goal of accomplishing with the counseling department is that every kid will have their schedules, teachers would have their schedules in May before they leave for the next year with only minor changes needing to take place. That's our goal. We're about to go through budget season. We're going to figure some things out and get that set up as much as possible for success for our students and our families, and get that master schedule together as quickly as possible. The team did an amazing job coming together in July and August, trying to get the master schedule reoriented. There was a lot of work to do on it unexpectedly. So hopefully that won't feel as messy as a process next fall. Because we really intend, before we leave school this year, that it's pretty clear like what's being offered and what courses are running for sure, based on numbers. I will say it's still a little messy because like I said, we have kids that sign up, they dual register, they register with us and they register with PSEO, not knowing if they're gonna get their PSEO course. Once they know, they drop the course, then we're having to move some things around to rebalance classes after the fact. That's just something we'll always have to kind of work through, and that's okay. We're thankful for the opportunity that our kids have. And then the big work we still have to do is, there's not a clear sequence. It just says every other year, but it doesn't say what year right now. And so we want to make sure it's really clear, what semester, what year a course is running. So that's not a question mark for folks, but we need to have the time to work with each department around like what that looks like. We have pathways, but they're kind of self-built. And so like making sure kids kind of understand like course sequencing, and like what that looks like, that's a area we're still going to be continuing to work on through the next year. Mm-hmm.
I just got a question. When you said registration day in spring, when does our registration versus when is their registration?
The PSEO, so what she's referring to, so PSEO registration takes place in like mid-August, I believe, is kind of like when that occurs. And so what happens is they're trying to register for PSO classes and we're not even working yet. Our counselors aren't on duty yet. Normally in my past experience in other districts, our master schedule had been done. We had a lot of work to do. We were working on it up to the day school started, quite honestly. There was some purpose behind not releasing the schedules to students because I wanted to meet them and their families. We'll talk more about like what that looks like for the future when that time comes. But what happens is they're registering for PSEO courses. They have a deadline that families have to meet. We don't have any hands in that. Our hands are making sure families understand that information. As described by Southeast, like they want to make sure that families are really walking through that and that it shouldn't be ever extra work. They don't want it to ever be any extra work for us as a school district. They want to be able to take care of that is what
So our students register before the class?
For the fall ones, yeah. Yeah. They register, so they register with us. So like we have a kid like math class in particular, right? They'll register for a math class at Southeast, but they've also already registered for courses with us. Because they don't know which one they're gonna get. They want PSEO. They don't know if they'll get a PSEO-C, right? And so they register for both. So they're holding a class, like a math calculus class on our schedule right now with one of our teachers. And then they might be registered for a PSEO one that's completely separate. We have some other classes that like we're talking about what's going to happen with chemistry, where we have a teacher that has a high enough credential to run concurrent enrollment for it, where they can get college credit and be in our building in our seat versus actually going across to Southeast for a course. And so they're dual registered. And then once they know exactly what they have, they drop one of them. And then they have a date through the college. That's their last day that they could theoretically withdraw from a college course and then get back into one of our courses, which does happen also, where kids sign up and go, well, not for me. I don't want to take a W on my transcript because that's not good for them. And they come back to us, and there's dates that are all involved in that. that they have to follow. And we kind of work with them on those pieces and try to communicate that out. The things we've heard from families from time to time is it's because we work with more than one college, it can be kind of messy for them as a family when they're trying to figure out like who they're supposed to talk to and who they're supposed to go to, which is why we put the PSEO session together. And that PSEO session we hosted at the fall conferences is something we will continue to offer throughout the year. And it's why we recorded it. We want to make sure we keep getting the information in parents' hands because it is a new process for a lot of families if you don't have that kind of experience in the past.
So our students register first before Southeast, in this case, opens their registration.
No.
They're not
that's
related.
how it has been.
But I think to your point is the students registered, but they don't know what they get
Yeah.
here. And so that's our goal now is that by the time we all leave here in May, teachers know, students know, so that if students are looking at their schedules and saying, this is the course I was hoping for is going to run this year. Now maybe I can fill that time with PSEO.
Okay,
Yep.
now I get it.
So hopefully in our new process, everything should be a lot cleaner for everybody. So that's it. Thank you for the question.
Anything else you have?
I think the next slide we've kind of covered.
We talked a little bit about it. Next slide, Lisa.
But it's kind of for more future mindset of just making sure that we're looking at sequencing, we're building out more flight paths as we go along. And those flight paths are really just meant as students have ideas and interests. We just kind of collect some of the courses that we would recommend that they be intentional with their selection.
And our kids are passing classes, which means a lot of kids are meeting a lot of credits early, and they can maximize their credits and use that 12th grade year to get more of a footing done in college. But we have to help them make sense of that. And do a better way of articulating that out because we have a lot of kids that have all their credits by the end of their junior year right now. They still have to meet some requirements based on grade level, but they have a lot of open space that they could be taken advantage of, especially when you consider things with our partnerships in the colleges and college credit earning opportunity.
Well, it sounds like there's no surprises, kind of like last year there was.
I hope not.
It sounds like everything's running smooth, good process that you have there, so.
We'll get there.
We'll see you back here in a little while at the regular meeting.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bar update. Who's handling that? Let me see. Hello there, Ms. Larson.
Hello, I'm good, how are you?
Introduce yourself and.
And then Lisa, if you can pull up the slideshow. I'm Nikki Larson. I am the bar coordinator, the REACH coordinator, and the ALC coordinator for the credit recovery. The reason I mentioned the other two, because I think they all kind of play a hand in what BAR's focus is, trying to make sure that every student is looked at and kind of wrapping our arms around everyone. This is our first year in BAR. So I'll just give you a brief overview of what BAR is, essentially what a week in BAR looks like, what successes we have seen at Red Wing High School, and then an opportunity to ask questions, knowing that this is our first year. I'm brand new at this position, so if I don't have the answer right away, I'll definitely find it out for you. So BAR is, Lisa, if you want to go to the next slide. BAR was developed at St. Louis Park High School here in Minnesota a little bit over 20 years ago. It stands for Building Assets, Reducing Risks, sorry. And it just focuses on the whole student, not just what they're doing in English, not just what they're doing in science, not just what they're doing in math and academics in general, but kind of focusing on them as a whole person, which is why we have our block meetings. In the past, it's been very, very departmentalized, where the English department meets and talks about English, and then social studies meets to talk about social studies. BAR, in our meetings, we talk about students, not about contact. We may talk about practices, strategies that they're doing in their class, but we're talking about the students, so it's definitely student focused. If you want to go to the next slide, Lisa. Every school, BAR is very data driven, which is why I think it was such a draw for Red Wing, was that there's proven results. So every school, it's a 3-year implementation process. They have seen decrease in failures, discipline referrals, and then also an attendance increase. And when I get to the last slide, we are starting to slowly, but surely, see those results as well. With the help of our teachers are doing fantastic with interventions and what they're doing. So these changes occur because it's a transformation. You have to think not how you normally think, which was a struggle, I think, in the beginning for our staff, but they've embraced it, our 8th and 9th grade team, of all right, we're gonna change the way we look at things, and now we are starting to see those successes, which is fun to see, especially towards the end of the semester, where we started from the beginning of the semester. You can go to the next one. 2 foundations, relationships and data. The first R in REACH is relationships. BAR is not strictly, but it main focus on the relationship building of staff and students, which is why we have I-Times, and I'll get into that in a little bit. If you have a relationship with your staff member, with a teacher, whether it's a para, whether it's another adult in the building, a counselor, you're gonna be successful because you want to be successful. You feel like somebody cares about you and that you're not doing this alone. So that's a big part of BAR. And they know relationships matter. So once a week, they know they're gonna have 1 class period dedicated to an I-Time activity where they can stop talking about math. They can talk about who they are as a person and going through different SEL components and make them feel valued from their teacher, which is huge, which then hopefully increases their academic success because they want to do better. Or they feel more comfortable coming to their teacher saying, hey, this is what's going on in my life, in my home life, in my personal life, whatever. Can we work something out? And they open up and they can communicate more, advocate for themselves so they can be successful. And then we also look at data. Data is big. We look at real-time data. So every week when we have BAR meetings, I pull grade reports, we pull attendance reports, and we pull referrals, looking at trends that we're seeing. Okay, all of a sudden this week, Johnny's acting up a little bit more, what's going on? Or we notice that this person is constantly tardy to first hour. How come they're not getting to school in first hour? What can we do? What can we address? So we do look at data. And then we also grab data from our I-Time activities to find out the student's background and whatnot. So those are the 2 parts of BAR that are super important that we really focus in and drive in on. Next slide. A week in BAR. Every week is the same. We are very routine in structure, which I think is good. The kids know what to expect. So every week we'll have an I-Time activity. Every week it is done, but it is rotated between departments. So 1 week science will do their I-Time activity in all of their science classes. Next week will be math, social studies, English, but the kids will get it every Wednesday. We have small block and big block meetings, and I'll get to that in a minute. And then our Community Connect risk review is our kind of our level 3 intervention that we do. So if you want to go to the next one. I-Time. These are fun. These were, I think every office in the district has utilized I-Time activities with different events. They are anything from getting to know you. The one coming up this week is responsive feedback, how to respond to people. There's a grieving one. There's a what's on your plate. Do you know your neighbor? Trying to build kind of a community within that classroom. And they're focusing on the student. Like I said, we're putting math aside for the day. We're putting science aside for the day. We're really just focusing on whatever the point of that lesson is. And that's what we're doing that day. Everything else is gone. The other nice thing about I-Times is that we can grab data. So if they're filling out a worksheet or they're doing what's on my plate, and what's on your plate is they say, what are positives? What are stressors? What things take up the most of your time? By looking at that, we can kind of look at, okay, this is what's going on personally. This is what's going on academically. How can we help that student be successful? And it's, again, building those relationships because they're seeing their teachers in a different light, and the teachers kind of driving home the message and the purpose of what that lesson is. And our teachers have done a fantastic job. If you ever get to observe a classroom, I would recommend going to an 8th or 9th grade classroom on a Wednesday and just see, it's very, very different to see the dynamic of that classroom shift from LA9 to I-Time time. So that's been really, really good. And it also gives that SEL component that sometimes the students don't always get in all their classes. And the next one are our block meetings. So we have small block and big block. Small block is just me and the core teachers. And then big block is myself, the core teachers, and then we have the counselors in there, an admin is in there, sometimes a special education teacher is in there, and our school psychologist is always in there. We focus on student progress. We have a spreadsheet, and I'll explain what we go through in our spreadsheet in a second here. And the purpose of that is to brainstorm interventions of why did this student get brought up at bar? What are our areas of concern? What is a SMART goal for that student that's obtainable for them? And then how are we going to help that student attain that goal? And then we also level them, and then we talk about whether those interventions were successful or not. We also use data. Like I said, I pulled the attendance, their grades, referrals, and then we also look at the iTime data as well. So those are those two meetings. If you want to go to the next one, I have a master spreadsheet for 8th and 9th grade. And the nice thing that we do is that even though we're only technically doing this in 8th and 9th grade, our 10th, 11th, and 12th graders are also using the spreadsheet and the bar process during their grade level meetings. So they don't have access to myself, but they are getting familiar with what is the process of bar, what are we looking at? So we do look at attendance, we look at their grades, and then the iTime data. And then Lisa, if you want to go to the next slide, I kind of covered this. Our spreadsheet, it always starts with student strengths. No matter why the student gets brought up into a bar meeting, we have to talk about their strengths. What is going on with this kid? What are they involved in? Are they funny? Are they creative? What are their strengths? So we're always starting with positive things. And the other grade levels have followed suit with this as well. We look at their grades, so I'll update their grades every week on the spreadsheet. What is their area of concern? Why were they brought up? What is their SMART goal to help with that area of concern? Interventions we can do, and then we level the student. So Lisa, if you can go to the next one. Leveling is what we do with all of our students. 45% of our students are going to be at a 0. They are thriving, they're doing fantastic. They don't need any interventions. We check in on them, tell them, you're doing awesome, good job, let us know if you need anything. Our level 1 students are the ones that usually come to bar, get brought up in our bar meetings first. Those are the students that we can reach those students with teacher level interventions. The individual teacher can work with a student, whether it's a grade check, whether it's an academic plan, whether it's, meet with the counselor, whatnot. So those are our level 1s, and usually they'll stay at a level 1 for 1 to 2 weeks, and we can put them back down. The goal is to move them back up to thriving. We want everybody to be at a level 0. Level 2 is where, all right, we've talked about this with the core. We might need a counselor to come in and help us out. We might need a psychologist to come in and kind of give us some more ideas. We might need an AP to come and help us keep the student accountable. What can we do when we brainstorm those ideas on Wednesdays? 5% of our students will move up to a level 3. And a level 3 is we've exhausted all possible in-class resources that we can offer the student, that we need to look at outside agencies. So whether we bring in Rise Up, whether we bring in Hope Coalition, whether we bring in our SRO or Pat Kelly to kind of look at things, it all is dependent upon the student. Not a lot of students get to the level 3. Our hope is that they don't, because we can hopefully help them be successful within the confines of the school, what we can do. However, sometimes we can't. So that's what the Community Connect and Risk Review meeting is for. All right, last one. What is going on with us? The first week of iTime was very interesting. It was not that it wasn't perceived very well, but it was new for everybody. It's the second week of school. Kids are like, I don't know if I want to do this activity. It is, I get goosies when I have to talk about it. It's amazing to see the participation. That was my biggest thing that I was nervous about was, are kids really going to participate? Are they going to take it seriously? Are they going to enjoy it? Because some of them they're not as exciting as others, but the ones that I've been in and the feedback I've gotten from bar coaches is that the students are engaged. Their phones are away. They are actually paying attention. They are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that iTime participation is awesome, which goes to the next part of those teachers are building relationships. And whether they think they are in the moment, we have been noticing it after the fact. They give hugs, they ask questions, they do, little things that they don't need to do, but we can tell that those relationships are being formed, and that's key with the iTime. So I'm super excited about that. We've started goals and academic check-ins with our level 1 and level 2 students. So between the counselors and myself, we will meet with the student. Here's your grades, what is your goal? And then we hold the students accountable so they fill in their own. I turned in this assignment, which is kind of similar to what I've done with Reach, making sure that they are being held accountable. So you finish an assignment, you fill in the spreadsheet, and then we still meet with them weekly. And we are slowly seeing a decrease in our Fs. So I look at the number of 8th and 9th grade students that have 1 F, and then I look at the students who have 4 or more Fs, which means that they're failing more than half their classes. The 4 or more Fs have been going down consistently week after week, which is a huge gain. We still have a long way to go, but we are definitely seeing that decrease, which is huge, which is what I think the end goal is, the relationships, and then also seeing the students be successful. And the tardies have been going down especially with our 9th grade kiddos. And that is my grand overview of VAR.
Is there a curriculum for the iTime?
Yes, there is. So there are 3 volumes, and there are 32, I believe 32 activities in each volume. So right now our 8th and 9th graders are doing curriculum 1, the volume 1, and then next year, the 9th and 10th graders will do volume 2, and then we'll slowly introduce. So yep, roll it up, yeah. And they're very, very familiar to, if you are familiar with Late Crew, that freshman orientation, they're very similar to that, the team building and whatnot. But yes, there's set curriculum and whatnot with it.
Any other questions? Yes.
I'm kind of curious about the interventions, and obviously your group is a wealth of knowledge and brainstorming and thinking about those, but are there suggested interventions for this issue or suggested interventions for this issue where?
So I have a cheat sheet that says if they're chronic tardies, these are possible interventions. During our training though, we were in, I think, 5 or 6 groups, and we had to list alphabet A through Z, what are interventions you could do that start with all of the letters, and I compiled it all into a document. So we sometimes will reference that of, we got to get creative. What are some of, the things we can't just do check in, check out with every kid, because that's just not going to work. So I have a little cheat sheet that steers, but again, VAR is so individually student focused that we tried to look at the data from iTimes, look at their grades, what are they struggling in, and let's try to kind of meet those students' needs with the interventions that are going to be best for them. So sometimes it's a struggle, sometimes it's a try one thing, okay, that didn't work, let's try another thing. So there's guides, but there's no if this, then that. But it is nice because the teachers, especially with the iTimes now, I think they see them in a different light, that they can kind of give more feedback of what interventions they feel would work. Because maybe checking their grades every week is just going to make them mad and make them frustrated. And let's not do that. Let's find another way to get them to be successful.
Any other questions? Yes.
Of course, I have questions. I always have questions. So you mentioned training for staff. How do we make sure that as staff retire and new staff are hired, how do we make sure that this isn't just like we did all this training now and people leave and what happens? How do we keep that going?
So it is a 3-year process. So we had training this past summer. We'll do another training. So each year there's a different training. I think this year for year 2, we'll focus on trauma-based. And I don't remember what the other part is, but there are trainings every year for 3 years. I did PD this year for our staff that wasn't able to attend. I think it's the 2 more years that we have, and we have up to 40 or 60 staff that we are able to send to that training. I don't know if you want to speak any more to that.
Yeah, so part of the aspect of having a coordinator is that the coordinator gets the wealth of knowledge, so it becomes a trainer model where we'll be able to offer that. And so I imagine in the future, depending on like what turnover looks like and how many staff we may need, it may be a worthwhile workshop to run during your teacher workshop when we have new staff joining us who are being implemented into it. Because we have a 3-year cycle coming up, even though the components are different, the concepts are all still the same. It's just different curriculum for your first question you asked. And so we are looking at that as we're beginning to receive announcements of retirements that are coming. And certainly with that mindset in mind, and then what the rollout looks both down potentially to the middle school and then up to the rest of the grade levels. But as a coordinator, that's what she has some time set aside to do. And we set staff time aside in our meetings, which is what she alluded to. She already did some additional training for staff that haven't been there. And we'll continue to do that in the future to make sure that we're meeting all those needs.
It's a pretty self-sustaining model as well, because the structure with the meetings, if one or two team members are new to the team, they still have the benefit of folks having done the process and can kind of show them the way. And then with the iTime lessons, it is an established curriculum. So I find the trainings really wonderful because you get to experience the relationship building activities, but I think it can be done pretty self-sustaining.
Are there plans to expand down to middle school and to other grades?
I'll let Allegra answer that one.
So we would really like to expand. It is a very expensive startup cost. And so we want to make sure that we are exploring all of our options. We have incredible resources with Nikki and then also with our high school staff. So one of the things we're discussing is, do we have the resources to be official bar schools? Or is there something in between?
Very good.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Interested, like that. Well, maybe another update next year too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Get a full year plus in.
We have pursued 2 grants that we have not received for middle school, but we'll keep trying.
Okay, effectiveness of workshops. This is for our board to talk and figure out how you want to go forward with our workshops. Is it working? Do we want to modify them? Do we want to record them? Do we want to hold them? So we'll let everybody say what they want to do.
Well,
Yes.
I'll start the discussion by saying that, I think the whole intention of the workshop was to obviously stop all of our committee meetings because we were rehashing all the committee meetings at the board meetings. So this was an opportunity to do our committee meetings together. And the workshop has ended up not being committee meetings and instead being special topics, which are all great. But I think we need to go back to having some regular discussions about what's going on in those different committee areas. One thing that we've talked about during agenda time, and now that we're the personnel and agenda group, is making sure that we have a regular slot on the agenda to be able to present out any things that we're discussing or hashing over so that the board knows. So I think that part of communication will be helpful. So I don't know that we need to have a workshop for finance, personnel, and operations. At least the agenda will cover the personnel. The other reason we had workshop before a board meeting is that we weren't meeting, if we wanted to learn more about bar, we wanted to learn more about White House. Nick wouldn't have to sit here till 7 o'clock waiting for his agenda time. He's had a full day of work already, so we should get him in and out so he's not here further. So that's why the workshop came first. So that would be my preference, is if we're gonna keep the workshop format, that we continue doing that before the board meetings.
That was my wonder in looking at this, was we have gotten, like tonight, so many meetings. We are discussing, having a pretty rigorous discussion or getting presented information first, and then we vote on it. And what would that look like if we flipped and did the meeting first and the workshop second? It'd be a little more thoughtful organizing or planning. It'd be another level of planning to get us the information we need before. It would be we get the information, which in a way, that could be good. We get the information, and then 2 weeks later, we vote on it, and that would give people time to process and ask further questions. I don't know. So that's another thought.
Who else? Next. Go ahead.
To me, the workshop just feels really formal. Like, this is essentially like a board meeting that's not a board meeting. And so I kind of was interested in maybe seeing what that would look like to be just a little more informal. And I don't know if that would mean not doing the live stream. I mean, obviously we have to record it and that, but maybe, just having a more intimate discussion. I don't know. We see it differently, or like, just so it's an open communication instead of like raising hand and like, asking questions, posing thoughts. Like, I just would like to see it more as a conversation, because I don't feel like as a board, like as a workshop, we're really like engaging in dialogue. It's just an extension of our board meeting, is what it feels to me.
You have a question?
Well, no, I have a comment. Actually, I have been, attending the Coffee and Conversation Zooms on MSBA, which are a wealth of information. And today, one of the topics they talked about was public comment, recording meetings, recording workshops, because by statute, we do not have to record any of this. So there are other districts that are looking at, do we record our meetings? Do we record public comment? Does inappropriate public comment get edited out? And here we are. We've been doing all of it. And there is some benefit, I think, as a board member. I think Anna's brought it up before too, that when we record the workshop, if you get a question from a community member or concern that it hasn't been discussed enough, you can go back to the workshop and give them that link, send them that link back. And if you're really motivated, go through and find the timestamp so that people can go back and look at it. But I can also see, empathize and understand, it doesn't feel like a conversation, it still feels like a meeting. And we are, by recording this and live streaming this, we're overachieving. And is this an area where we need to overachieve? Because it would still be an open meeting, people could come.
Teresa, from the Coffee and Conversations, did you get a sense of how many districts do workshops like twice a month?
I did not, because we're mostly focused on to record or not to record. But when I look at the districts in the ed districts, some of those districts don't even meet twice a month, they meet once a month. So
A couple of districts I talked with, they do like one board meeting a month and one informal, unrecorded, like
workshop.
ad hoc, like workshop once a month.
I think that's what they do in Zumbrota, Mazeppa. They have a workshop, one meeting, and the other meeting is a meeting.
When I was a board member in Richfield, we almost never did workshops, unless, like, we did one a year with our local legislators, or like Best Buy was putting in a innovation lab, so we like met with them. So we would do them kind of as needed when there was a really in-depth topic or issue. But in Hopkins, where I worked, they would have them every week, and it was really similar kind of to how we run here. So I do think there's a pretty wide swath. So in Richfield, a lot of the things that in Red Wing are covered during the workshop were part of the board meeting. So pros and cons of that.
Jennifer, Anna? Nikki?
I think since, I agree that it feels more like board meeting part A and board meeting part 2, or part B. I don't know my numbers and alphabet today. Anyway, so to me, it would make sense to not call it a workshop, just have a meeting and have like, a special topic that we may have that particular meeting. But I can see the point of not wanting to have, staff who are gonna present have to hang out forever. But I think we could do some rearranging of the agenda potentially, to move those kinds of things forward. And push the things like the consent agenda or stuff that like we might discuss, but it doesn't involve like outside input, to later on. You know, kind of like when, you know, the height of COVID, where that got bumped to the beginning of the agenda because it was something that, you know, so many people were interested in and had the potential to kind of, you know, take over the meeting sometimes. So I don't know, I guess my thought is to not have a workshop, but just incorporate those workshop topics into the meeting. But maybe have like once a month or something, have something that's more informal in addition or after or whatever, you know, but not have it. My thoughts on this are clearly very well formed. Yeah.
Yes.
I feel a little bit like Anna, kind of back and forth on the whole thing. I agree with everything that's been said. But going back to what Pam said, I feel like if we do not have a workshop, then we need to really talk about committees and what is that going to look like. And if we do have a workshop, I think we need to include the discussion, the committee discussion in the workshop and be very intentional about that because there are a number of things that I think we are missing because we do not have those committees and we are not including it. But I also feel like it does feel like we have two meetings happening here, so it could just be one meeting. I think it's important to think about staff and making sure that they're not here all night waiting on us. But then also starting at 5 and saying we're going to start the regular meeting at 6. I was just thinking of the last time for our meeting, those kids were sitting around for another half hour waiting for us because we didn't start at 6. So would it be better to start the meeting at 5 and then include any staff presentations at the beginning and the students so everyone is predictable as to what we're going to be doing each week. I think that would be beneficial.
I agree with everyone.
I do think the 5 o'clock time might be challenging for some people, like myself personally at the moment. But aside from me, you know, a lot of people work until 5. So I think that was, when we didn't have a workshop before, when the meeting started at 6, that gave people who worked until 5 a chance to get to the meeting if they wanted to attend it. Not that we necessarily have that many people. The majority of the people who come already work here. They're already here in the building, so they're the ones hanging around for another 2 hours. I don't know, for whatever that's worth.
Well, I think if we just make it the one big meeting, we still lose out on any opportunity to have informal discussion. So I guess that was the other important piece to me. Maybe it isn't to anybody else, but like personnel committee, you know, you have an opportunity to meet and kind of have a more informal discussion on some level, but like the rest of us, like we can't get together. We can't even send an email chain or, you know, anything really informal. Like I was looking more for just conversation that's important, but maybe less formal. So maybe that isn't.
But I'll just jump in, unless somebody else has something else they want to say first. Workshop was kind of designed, part of what Pam had said is to get a chance to talk about stuff. And I agree, this is very formal. The workshop is very formal, I'd say. If you look at today's agenda that we'll be saying there's committee updates, we've added that to the agenda. So you get actually, instead of a committee assignments, you're actually, that's where the personnel or the finance is going to be talking about things that have, or other committees. So I would like to do it more informal. I'm not so sure I like to do informal that we tape it, videotape it. I just think it's time to get together. If people want to come, it's an open meeting, we advertise it, we talk. Committees, which is totally fine by me, talk about committees, maybe just do it once a month. And then we hold the other meeting at, the 6th and get some of the other stuff done. Most of the time, things are brought up during the workshop, except for tonight, we're gonna talk about the catalog because of timing. Most of the stuff is like another 2 weeks out too, usually do. So you have some time to think about it. I agree with I think the 6 o'clock is better than the 5, just so we don't change something suddenly and people are wondering. Not many people come to our meetings, I get that. They're busy lives. So I'd like to live stream our regular meetings, but not our workshop. I think that gives us a time to sit down and just talk, and if somebody's interested, come on over. The issue is this, do we want to meet once or twice a month on a workshop? So, yes.
One thought that occurred to me is, do workshop one Tuesday or Monday, and then do a meeting the following, but it can be daunting to wait a whole month to act on something, and that's really hard. I think that's gonna be really hard for our administration and our board to kind of come to grips with, kind of like what you were saying about really having to change our mindset, but we could always add in a special meeting. Like if we did, the first Monday of the month is our regular board meeting, and the second time we meet is a workshop, we would have ample time then to say, we need to set a special board meeting to vote on this issue solely. So we'd already be together, it's already on our calendar, we can tack on a special meeting to vote on something that second time that we met in the month. As long as it's not a regular occurrence, I think that would be okay. So that would help us with that transition if we were to go to one meeting, one workshop.
I was kind of saying one workshop a month and then about 2 board meetings. I wasn't that.
Oh, I got you.
Just do the first meeting of the month or second meeting of the month, whatever, a workshop, and then have a board meeting, and then the following month, following or beginning, whichever one is just a regular school board meeting.
Would you still do the workshop at 5, do you think, before the meeting or after?
I would do the board at 6. I agree with you about, I don't want to make it, if we're going to change something, a big change would be by moving up our time. No, there's no perfect time to have a meeting, I know that. But by changing it, we'll probably, at least people know when we meet, if they want to attend. Or watch. Yes.
Would it be better to move the workshop to after the regular meeting then, if we did one workshop?
I think that we got people waiting around even longer than two. Because I like the idea, we are trying to move people up towards the front more. Even business items, we'll try to get them up sooner than later. We'll do the other stuff. We can always do a consent agenda under the calendar. We always do a consent agenda at the end. So it's normally not that big an issue, so.
There are some districts that were on a Zoom call this morning that have their public comment at the very end of the meeting and not
Oh,
at
that's a
the
good idea.
beginning.
And I don't believe we should be broadcasting public comment. myself.
Right, well, and that's, the discussion, and fortunately, we in Red Wing haven't been in situations where we have the public coming in to public comment, I know that one for sure, that are violating the rules of public comment, and they are talking about students specifically, staff specifically, items that are not on the agenda, issues that should not be discussed in schools, and I'm sitting here thinking, wow, I love Red Wing.
So,
The only thing I would say about having public comment at the end is that if you have somebody that's pretty upset or irate and then make them sit around until 8:30 or 9 o'clock when we finally get to it, I don't think that's helpful. I can think of a couple of times that we've had some pretty heated public comments discussions, and the one gentleman in particular that we had to call the police for assistance, I think, waiting until 8 or 8:30 for him, I just don't think that's a great idea either. So, hopefully we'll never have those situations again, but we can't bank on that.
Well, and bearing that in mind, there are some districts that have like a 30-minute listening session before the board meeting that's not recorded. You sign up that day, first come, first serve. So you could have something, if there's a hot topic and you don't get there right away, you could have a lot of people that are very frustrated because they've got to not just wait till the end of a 2-hour meeting, they have to wait 2 more weeks or a month to try and get there first so that they can have their concerns
That's an interesting idea though, of having like the public comment or, you know, public input at 5:30 and then the meeting starts at 6. That, I don't know, but there's a hard cutoff too. Because sometimes that's the thing, and like, you know, that's the board chair's prerogative to say, like, we need to move on, we will no longer hear any public comment. There's no obligation to hear public comment. I mean, I think it's important, obviously, for us as board members to understand what the public's feeling, what concerns they have, you know, what issues are important to people. But it doesn't have to be part of our meeting or a large part of our meeting. You know, there's no obligation that every single person who comes to make public comment is heard at our meeting. Because that's not really the function of our board meetings.
Right, our board meetings are business meetings held in public. It's also important
Right. It's not a meeting of the public, it's a meeting in the
in
public.
public, right?
Well, an interesting thing's gonna happen in another week and a half or so. We're gonna have the MSBA conference
Next week,
so we can brainstorm with some other people up there that,
Right.
what they do and how they do it. And I think this is what the workshop's kind of about. It's kind of informal, just talking about stuff like you were talking about. I like it. I think that's how we solve things and hear things and debate things. And everybody's got different ideas about it. That's healthy. So,
well, and there's legislation, potential legislation about public comment and recording it and can it be edited and by a citizens group that wants to make sure there's transparency. And we hear from the people. And when I look at, because I've gone to plenty of city council meetings, the city council, the access that people in our community have to make public comment on city council is so much broader because people can sign up to make public comment on something that's not on the agenda. There's no rules about if you have a group of people that want to talk about the same thing like we do, you pick a spokesperson and one person gets to talk, not 50. And then at the city council meeting, not only can you sign up for public comment, but you can sign up to comment on every single item of the agenda, which makes for really long meetings for the city council. So I appreciate the structure that we do have so that we have opportunity for input, but we can also get the work done that we need to get done, because that's really important.
and the other thing, we have Wagner Wednesdays is a good way for people to
Right.
get out and express themselves too, and our staff's been involved in those. Our staff has been very good about saying open communication with the community. Please contact me, come up and see us, or I'll come see you, however. And I think that goes a long way, just talking about things that are going on and what they're seeing or hearing and want to discuss, so. So what's you like the idea of one workshop a month, 2 board meetings, 2 workshops, both, taping them informally? I don't. One workshop's fine by me.
What if we have that, you know, it's a public forum from 5:36 and nobody shows up, which is often the case, then we can talk about whatever, but it's a public space, you know, so it doesn't have to be, it can be very informal. And then we have our meeting and then include whatever committee things need to be addressed during the meeting, you know, the finance updates, the personnel, and if we need to have additional committees, so be it.
So you're proposing to.
Once or twice a month.
workshop?
Essentially, yeah. Yeah.
Do it at
Just-
5, and we could start at 5, do the public comment at 5:45, and then that way we'd have time to, we got over. There we go. Yes,
I personally like having a workshop. I think having it once a month, we could try and see how that goes. I think that would be good. Like Rachel mentioned, it would be nice to have a space where we can talk like this and just be comfortable. I like the idea of not recording it. These computers are annoying, frustrating, you know, and on camera, it's very different than when you're just sitting around a table talking to each other. So, I think that would be great to do the one workshop a month. I definitely think we need to continue recording the regular meetings and live streaming, and I like our public comment. We have not had issues with our public comment. I think we have good rules, you know, we are able to follow that. I don't feel like it needs to change. So I guess I appreciate Jim's idea of one workshop a month and then the 2 regular meetings.
I'm open to continuing as that, it is, I'm just going to on record, keep it as is, fine, but I agree with you about the recording of the workshop. Not recording.
I think if it's something we're having a discussion about, it's nice to not have it recorded, but if it's something where someone's giving a presentation, it is nice to have it recorded, because I've gone back and watched things. It's like, I swear, this is what, you know, that person said. And then like I can go back and watch and be like, oh no, I totally misremembered that, or yeah, I was right, that's what they said. You know, so it helps my memory, and then like, you know, what I said that Therese was talking about too, to be able to say like, you have questions about open meeting law? We had a person come talk to us. Here's the video. We talked very specifically about the thing you were asking about, you
But
know?
most of that makes it to the board, right? So you could link that in, like, for example, the high school catalog.
The catalog,
to the
yes.
board.
Yeah, but like, so we had, the one that I have referenced a couple times is, we had somebody from MSBA come and do a workshop with us where they talked about open meeting law, and so we asked like, and about conflict of interest. So, you know, we asked lots of questions about like, okay, my kid is involved in theater. Do I need to recuse myself anytime there's something, like they're voting on the budget for the theater, for, you know, the musical that's happening? Do I need to recuse myself from that? And like, no, that's not a conflict of interest, but if I'm like, I'm getting paid to design the set for the musical, absolutely that is a conflict of interest. I do not get to vote or have any conversation about the budget for that musical. So anyway, I mean, it was very just informational, probably not that interesting to the public, but then when the public, somebody from the public has that question about like, hey, I have this very specific concern, it was really helpful to be able to pull that and say, we talked about that exact thing, and here's where it was. But then, you know, there have been other times too, where somebody's given a presentation or talked about, you know, ideas that they have that don't make it to the board meeting because they're not necessarily something that we're voting on. But then when it does come around that we're voting on it, I'm like, wait a minute, that wasn't what you said in the workshop, or I don't think that was what you said. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. But it's nice to be able to go back and look at that.
So would it be better to record but not live stream? Would that make a difference for us? What do you do during closed session? Do you have?
We record.
Audio record. No,
We didn't have
audio recording. That really is actually the only thing that by law we have to record, but that's not published on the website.
For me, like, live streaming versus recording is the same thing. Like,
In terms
you know
of
what I
event,
mean?
yeah.
I have to tell you, I don't care about any of it.
I'll just say it.
Well, sometimes, and I try to do this when we bring up conversation during a board meeting, if we discussed it during the workshop, I will try to say, you know, we've discussed this in the workshop, quite lengthy, you know, try and give a short synopsis of where we landed or why we landed or why I landed there. And go from there. I think there's a huge amount of value in that recording our workshop.
Yeah. But
I see your point. I mean, I really get it. And I think if we were to have like a special speaker come in and give like a presentation specifically an hour long on this or that or the other topic, I think that would be worth it. But that's different than sitting around a table and having a conversation.
And I think, Pam, your point that we need, if we do not record the workshop, we do need to be very intentional in making sure that, first of all, people know you can come to the workshop, but also we spent 45 minutes talking about this and looking at this, and this. And now we're going to make this decision, so people understand that. And I think we need to do that anyway, because the general public, it doesn't seem like people are concerned or aware of something until after we've taken a vote. And now it's in the newspaper, and I can say this from decades in education. People think we make all these decisions under cover of darkness, and here we are. And we've talked about it generally more than one meeting and at length. And so, you know, we just need to educate the public.
Well, and I think maybe that can also be a piece on our background sheet. Like if it's something that we're voting on, we could reference, you know, we discussed it on workshop on this date, and this date. You know, and just, I mean, it would take a little bit more work probably on Lisa's part, sorry, Lisa, in note taking, but it, you know, the background sheets could definitely help us in that area.
Lisa usually knows all that, like,
I know.
off the top of her head anyway. Although typing it up is different.
When I was at the county, we never recorded anything other than the closed sessions. And so the person taking the minutes was kind of got a little bit more in depth than what we see now, so. But I like the idea of being able to sit around and talk, but it's a public meeting, people can come. So I wasn't one saying maybe one meeting a month for a workshop. I would say we start with 2 when we come back to our regular meeting, keep it as it is. And then if we decide down the road, we can always drop a meeting, drop the workshop for 1 month. But to add it back on, then you gotta get people back engaged in that too. But I'd rather cancel a workshop than try to start adding them.
And then we're not going to record workshops anymore.
I would not, but we're not, we may be the lone people on that. I don't know how others think.
I like the idea of not recording, but when we have a special speaker,
Yeah,
then we do record.
And the live stream would start when the regular meeting starts, and the recording would start when the regular meeting starts.
I also noticed mentioned a suggestion that the workshop be located in J108. And,
that's widely here.
Well,
We start the board meeting at 5 and then go over there at 7.
okay.
Pick ourselves up and walk to another room.
Well, the one thing about meeting in J108, isn't that the one that's in the community at office conference room? That is, that's where we had our workshop with Stephanie Autumn. That is a smaller room and a more intimate setting. So that would be the plus of that for the workshop. The negative would be, it's more for the public to keep track of if they want to, people are creatures of habit and this is where it is, but we could also push our tables closer together. We could sit around in a circle without the tables. We could do whatever.
Yeah, well, we don't need all of this, so
Right,
we are
that's
mobile, we just show up or.
Right.
I think if we're in 2 different locations for sure, but even if we're not, I think it would be good to try to keep that workshop as we talk at 6:20. Keep it to ending at 6, so that when we say the meeting starts at 6, the meeting starts at 6, or pretty close to,
As we're.
Exactly. But so maybe that means that something like the presentation about, the handbook or bar happens at the meeting then instead.
Right.
Or whatever. This discussion happens, whatever, you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
we just,
I guess you're right, that's
going
gonna make everybody think about what we want to have in the workshop and what is more appropriately placed in the meeting. So,
I think for the workshop, let's go 5 to 5:45. That way you have 15 minutes to play with, because it's now
Yeah.
6:20 and our meeting is supposedly started at 6. So we won't get going out till close to 6:30. So, and let's give it a try. Everybody good with that? Not record, start at 5:45, start right at 6, and get the ball rolling twice a month.
Perfect.
And I would request that we have more conversations about those community.
we are, as what I've gleaned from our talking conversation is, our district is very committee
Committee, what?
light. Sorry, we don't have many they've got policy committee, budget committee, finance, there's personnel,
Policy.
policy,
We
yeah.
used to have them all. That's what we had.
Yeah,
You can go on them all.
well, I feel like I kind of am on a lot already, but.
All right, I think we got far enough. We got one more thing, don't we? Anything on, policy 704?
Oh, this is a
whatever?
quickie.
704, was it?
Yep.
Fixed assets.
It's in the board meeting.
I think it's just changing it
Oh,
from our
it's on the
audit.
board meeting.
Lisa, come on up, please. That's right.
You should do it at the board meeting. Well,
Come on, real quick. Come up and tell us what it is, please. Good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening. Lisa Ryder, Director of Finance and Operations. So as you may recall, when the auditors spoke to you about our 23 fiscal year audit, they had made a suggestion that we modify our policy to make it clear as to the threshold that we are using for our fixed assets. So this is simply modifying policy 704, which is the policy for development and maintenance of an inventory of fixed assets and a fixed asset accounting system. We are simply adding into it 2 sentences that essentially call out the exact dollar amount that we're using for a threshold. It is a change from 1,500 to 5,000, but it is under the recommendations too that they had made. So this is simply modifying this to match that and to make it clear within our policy of those thresholds.
Perfect. Yep, I think we all heard that loud and clear from Mr. Olander when he was here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else before the workshop?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second it.
Motion by Ms. Ossendorf, second by Ms. Bjornstedt. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. We'll start at 6:30. Thank you. I like what you.
It was a good discussion. Yeah, that was, are you saw that? I won't say anything else, I'm sorry.
present, along with Assistant Superintendent Ms. Schmiedcheck. I have a tough time with that one, I'm sorry. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, like I just stated. The meeting agenda we have in front of us, we do have something there we need to remove at this time because Superintendent Wagner is ill. And that would be under 4, number 2, the ALC. Remove that from today's discussion and bring that to a future meeting. Also, I think under number 14, then we can add just breakfast with the board, just a small update. We don't have much information, but just to keep it out there for everybody to do that. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to amend the agenda with or for? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Rowe, is there a second? I'll second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next thing is election of officers. So I'll start we have 4 positions that we have normally had here: chair, vice chair, clerk, and treasurer. We'll start out with nominations for board chair. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I would like to nominate Jim Bryant.
Okay, the nomination for Jim Bryant. Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? Okay, with that, no other nominations. I believe that, I listened to that thing that they do, that Jim Bryant will become chair. So we'll move on to vice chair.
I nominate Therese.
Nominate Therese. Is there any other nominations? Yes?
I'd like to nominate Pam Rowe.
Okay, and all. Is there any other nominations? Is there any other nominations? One more time. Any other nominations for vice chair? All right. We'll start, we'll go like a roll call vote with this. Mr. Armstead?
I'll have to vote for myself.
Ms. Buck?
Therese.
Ms. Stipp?
Therese.
Ms. Rowe?
Pam.
Pam.
Ms. Osler?
Therese.
Therese? I'll vote. She was my good, nothing against anybody, she was a good vice chair. so I'll
No,
vote
it's
Pam.
fine.
So, 4-3, Therese is vice chair. Congratulations. Is there a motion for clerk?
I'd like to nominate Jennifer.
Is there a motion for Jennifer Tiff as clerk? Are there any other nominations for clerk? Are there any other nominations for clerk? I'll go one more time, just in case nobody's hearing me. Any other nominations for clerk? Hearing none. Jennifer Tiff is our clerk. Treasurer. We have a treasurer. Any nominations for treasurer? Yes,
I would like to nominate Rachel Schoenfelder.
thank you. No motion for Rachel Schoenfelder. Is there any other nominations? Any other nominations? One more time. Are there any other nominations for treasurer? Hearing none. Rachel Schoenfelder has become treasurer again. Congratulations, everybody that got elected. And thank you very much for your support for chair. And Ms. Diff is going to read our mission statement.
The mission of the Redmond Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you very much. Recognitions and upcoming events.
Next week, we're going on the MSBA Leadership Conference. I believe most of us are attending Thursday or Friday, some of us Wednesday night as well.
There's stuff Wednesday, right?
Yes, Wednesday night.
Anybody else have anything? Recognitions of upcoming events? It's a new year. I really liked the newsletter that we get weekly from Ms. Jacobson, Ms. Robertson, excuse me, and the one we got from Mr. Bierman too. We get that one. That was a very nice one too. I like that. So.
Ms. Grove.
What's that?
Ms. Grove puts one out too.
I don't get that. It's kind of hard to get, see it. Include me. Ms. Grove does a nice one too.
They all do.
Yeah, they do.
Thank you.
Mike as well.
Yeah, everybody does them.
Everybody does one? Do they do? Well, we gotta include the board.
Yes.
I'm not included. So, all right. Public comment. Do we have anybody public comment over there?
No.
No? Did you get any,
I did not
emails?
receive any
Anything
requests.
from, I did not either. Administrative reports.
Sure, I will take it away. So, since it's the first meeting of the month, we have our building updates. Update from Cobble, their fall session of BCFE has wrapped up and registrations are open for the spring session. They're trying some new things such as a book study and a special event with ride ability. The 24-25 school year Little Wingers preschool registration is opened, starting January 9th at their open house. At Sunnyside, kindergarten and first grade students did some charitable fundraising during the month of December. They were raising money for the community of Red Wing and completed chores for donations. Kindergarten students raised over $900 for the Red Wing High School food shelf, and first grade students raised over $650 for Hope Coalition. Representatives from both attended an assembly on Friday, December 22nd, to accept the donations. And Mr. Alden's students got the chance to pie Mr. Pagel in the face as the top earning class. Congratulations to them. On January 10th and 11th, first grade students will be attending a field trip at the Minnesota Children's Museum. And this field trip is made possible through a grant from the Red Wing Public Schools Foundation, and busing is provided by the Sunnyside Innovative Learning Fund. And that's funded through their school fundraisers. So thanks to all for making those possible. At Burnside Elementary, Neil Lehammer and Les Elbers have spearheaded an activity with the Red Wing Food Shelf to provide party gift bags. For example, the classroom projects were to put together a birthday party in a bag, snowman soup, and cookie decorating night, and were delivered on December 19th. And a food drive will be coming up in March. At Twin Bluff Middle School, Mrs. Phil Finholm's grade 7 math students have been visiting Sunnyside and celebrating the learning of math through Math Buddies program. Grade 7 students meet with and help teach the current concepts that are being covered in the elementary classrooms. It's amazing to see the bonds forming between students and how the middle school students learn through teaching our younger students. Ms. Wag and Ms. Duval sponsored an Adopt a Family for the Holidays program, and the staff at Twin Bluff stepped up big time. The staff adopted 14 families and spread holiday cheer to all. Last but not least, at our high school, we've had several drives occurring in the lead up to the holiday break from BSU, NASA, and FCA. That all showed an outpouring of support from the community. BSU was able to offer back a large amount of clothing back to various schools and set up tables to offer clothing to those in need before leaving for the winter break. I noticed that right before break as well, really creative and supportive of our community. The Ovation Choir was incredibly busy in the month of December, performing throughout the greater area, and graced our staff with a performance before sending everyone off to break. Thank you to Scott Rowe and all our scholars in Ovation Choir.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Committee updates. This is the time to put on the agenda committee updates for all the committees we have. We're going to talk about later on. see which ones we have. Okay. Any updates on committees? Do you have anything on personnel? I don't remember what we
We were discussing,
discussed this, putting this on the agenda.
yes,
For committees, a separate line.
yeah. I think the only thing that we were discussing a little bit more about was, a potential for a director of educational equity. In response to, the non-concurrence through our union and, the PAC, APAC. And so we're looking at options possibly for that, but, that obviously is a huge funding issue that we'll have to take a closer look at. There's a lot of things that need to come together in order to be able to fund that appropriately.
And they put in the meeting that we had them here, they agreed to meet them.
Yeah, so that's the next
Really
step.
cute. So we'll hopefully get that scheduled very soon. So,
I do have a job description drafted, so I can set that up imminently.
okay, great. We gotta figure out a time then, as we understood when we're gonna meet too. And we can't, we're not doing random duty.
Yeah, as long as I can get it in the morning before Greg takes his nap.
Anybody else have any committee meetings, updates, anybody?
I have the diversity and equity inclusion meeting on the 14th of December. Anti-staff came in and facilitated a restorative practice session. She explained that it starts with us and how we walk in this world versus a handbook. Modeling agreements, restorative is giving up something for the greater good. That is key, because that's what Redwood Public Schools taught me, is that both parties gotta be able to give up something in order to move forward in a positive manner, so I really liked that one. Restorative practices are about shifting the paradigm. Each building could create a 3 to 5 year plan to switch systems, creating restorative and healing informed approaches, and bringing circle model into environments. Restorative model everyone has a part in building the capacity, integrating restorative practices into the school systems and community, time, environment, policy, language, capacity building, shared leadership, allocation of resources, inclusion of those most impacted communities. And that's it.
Thank you. Else have anything? Anything from finance? Negotiations?
Yeah, we'll have a nutrition services, negotiation meeting on Thursday, 5:15 J108.
All right, we'll move on. Consent agenda? Anybody have anything they wish to say from the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by who? Ms. Tip? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ossendorf. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. High school course catalog. Oops, Mr. Wetland, did he leave?
Daddy duties.
Okay. He's got a little one. It's for you.
Just me, yeah.
Go ahead and introduce yourself again.
Yeah.
You might have new customers watching us.
Yeah, absolutely. Joshua Fuchs, high school principal. Lisa, are you putting the presentation up again for us?
You can, otherwise you can just say we discussed it at the board meeting, the workshop, and
Yeah. So yeah, I would encourage anyone who wasn't able to join us for the live stream to watch the recording from the workshop session to see the PowerPoint slide presentation. But we have been working on the course catalog for the 24-25 school year. What we presented to the board earlier is new course offerings that are being offered. We have had an array of course offerings that were turned in by our staff. And then we went through the process of working with teaching and learning and our own staff to approve some of those courses that made the most sense. for the next school year that we had the capacity to provide and the space to provide, and were for the best of our students. We did 2 name changes on courses to be more reflective of what's actually being taught in the course. And one of those changes actually offers a concurrent enrollment process now as well. And we talked about some of the structural changes about the registration process that will make sure that we communicate out to families when that time comes around.
Very good. Any questions? Went into the new programs that they're offering and the reasons behind it. Streamlining the registration part and do one-on-one with some of the students. So it's good. Yes.
I just want to say that I really appreciate this being brought to us in January. It's nice to have that advance time to be able to look at it and, you know, for the families and to be able to see it once it's ready.
And as requested by one of the board members, I had shared the draft with each of you through Google Drive on your RWPS accounts. It is view only currently because there are still some minor edits, as I mentioned in our previous workshop meeting, that when I talked about like course sequencing and when things are being offered, we're continuing to work on those, but the actual courses themselves will not be changing in the handbook at this point.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve the high school course catalog as presented?
So
Moved by Ms. Schoenfelder. Is there a second?
second.
Second by Ms. Ostendorf. Any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Ryan?
Yes,
We skipped over the resolution accepting donations.
I did skip over that. Thank you. I got right into because Mr. Fuchs was sitting there. He was giving me donations and grants. Thank you very much for pointing that out. I did miss that. So, go ahead. I'll let you take that.
So we are very grateful for the donations we've received. First, from the American Association of University Women, the Red Wing branch. They donated $472 to our literacy project at Sunnyside. Sheena Whitlock from Good for Girls donated socks, boxer briefs, bikini briefs, and personal hygiene products. American Legion Post 54 donated $150 to the Twin Bluff Adopted Student Gift Program. We also received 3 very large grants from the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, or DEED. The first one for $250,000 was for a Pathways to Prosperity grant to bridge to advanced manufacturing. This is for our adult education through community education. We received a second grant for $250,000 that is specific to an on-ramp to manufacturing. And then finally, a $150,000 grant, individualized training pathways for internationally trained professionals. So our sincere gratitude for these grants and donations.
Do you see there's a typo in here? It says $250.
Yes, that should be $250,000.
Can I just comment that it was Jill Ekblad? Jill Rivard, sorry, spearheaded the writing of these grants, so shout out to Jill.
Thank you for recognizing her.
Kudos to Jill. Yeah. All right, is there a motion to accept the resolution?
So
By Ms. Ostendorf. Is there a second?
second.
Second by Ms. Schoenfelder. Roll call vote. Start with Ms. Ostendorf.
Aye.
Schoenfelder.
Aye.
Ms. Roll.
Aye.
Ms. Bjornsted.
Aye.
Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Ms. Tiff.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I glanced right over that. So. All right, board meeting handbook. You want to take this? You got your name written all over it too.
Oh, thank you so much. I think I'll pass it back.
Okay. This is just the handbook that we just wanted to bring it up there at the beginning of every school year. Normally, we have new board members coming on to, anybody watch that organizational meeting video from MSBA.
I started watching it and I got sidetracked.
That was pretty good. They had quite a bit on there. It moved right along, over an hour. So, we're just open meeting law. Ms. Osborne talked about that a little bit there. MSBA overview, all that, you know. Roles as a school board member, what we talked about our meetings and all that, so appreciate everybody that's put the time and effort into being a school board member. It takes a lot, I know. It does a lot of the staff to put up with a lot of our school board members, right?
Always.
But I think we, as a group, we get a lot done when we all get together and running, I think, very smoothly. I think pretty much we've accomplished a lot. Kudos to each of one of you for all we accomplished in 2023. And our help with our staff, don't get me wrong, some of us did not do it. We helped, we assisted the staff in making those things that they recommended to us. So I want to thank them all for that. But we can't do it if we're not here. So we meet twice a month, and that's, we'll try to get it all done then. So, any questions or comments? Yes.
I was looking more at like some of our just red line policies. And I wondered if we should maybe revamp the 202, like the school board officers, update, like, you know, it doesn't even list in here vice chair. The roles listed under chair, treasurer, clerk, you know, are kind of not very accurate to some degree. And even like, maybe this ties into the committee meeting too, but like even the fact that right now we currently have the chair and vice chair that sits on the personnel committee, that's not spelled out anywhere. Like nothing's really clear that you can go to this and understand what your role is if you sit in one of those officer positions.
Good point. We added that during the mid-year, we changed the policy. We'll put that on your plate. How's that sound?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
You know, well,
Yes.
you know, what we should maybe do is look, and MSBA has model policies for all this stuff, so maybe, you know, there are a wealth of resources. We could go on their website and look at their.
They do, but they're not specific. Like every district kind of has their officers doing specific things differently.
We could have staff to be clerk or treasurer too,
Right.
Yeah.
so. we should
But like
probably-
this, like, for example, like our chair and vice chair sitting on personnel, that's not an MSBA,
Right,
right? Like,
Right,
we just need it more localized, I think, what we want those positions to be doing.
Yeah, let's tidy it up, I guess. Okay, any other comments, questions? All right. Scheduling a retreat. Recall last year we had a retreat out at the Anderson Center with our leadership team, admin team, however, whatever terminology we use. I don't mean just go by board. And then we had a board retreat after that too. So look at your calendars. Come up with some dates.
Is the intention for it to be in the summer
I
or
think
sooner?
we should have it soon.
Okay.
For the next 2 months.
so the quarter ends. Yeah, so
Quarter ends 18.
probably not this month.
Next month? So,
What are we doing at this retreat?
huh?
What are we doing at
we
this
just,
retreat?
we get together with the, remember we did that last year with the
Oh,
admin
to do
team?
the same thing?
Yeah, that was a retreat, it was called.
Well, we can do different things at retreats.
I know. So what day of the week works good or bad for everybody?
Depends when you're looking.
I'm thinking a Thursday,
What time of day? That's the,
afternoon. What did we start last time at? Was it 1 o'clock? 2 o'clock?
Oh, well, the last thing we had was when we had our meeting with Stephanie Autumn. And that was, I think, that one or two.
You came up with those, didn't we?
Well, that was a different one, that was in the summer. Did we start at one?
The one was.
Or did we?
Well, the 22nd is the cafe, so we probably shouldn't do that day.
No. 15th or the 8th? February?
does that early in the day work for like admin? Like, is that who's coming to, or is it, no, is it just us?
Admin, we kind of met with them. and
Okay.
went over stuff and,
I think you can't take all the principals out of the building.
And wasn't it tied into the
Sorry.
yeah, when do you meet? When do you meet? You're right. You're right. Somebody said that. When do you meet in February?
See, we meet January 30th, and then, which is a Tuesday, not
Okay. We can go Tuesday.
we also have a, principals cabinet meeting on the 13th of February. Also known as Valentine's Day.
That's what day?
Valentine's.
What does that mean?
Where you appreciate your girlfriends.
Oh, okay.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, women celebrate women.
But we can do that at the retreat as well.
Yeah, thanks.
How about the 6th or what? How about we look into March then? That's fine.
So are you thinking like, more like a workshop, the retreat we did together, how in advance since our last summer before school started?
Did we meet there?
We did one there and then we had another one at,
Oh, so
we
did
met
the
with
summer-
Stephanie first.
Maybe in the
And
summer.
then we met with the admin team, we had dinner and then we had a retreat after that.
Yeah, I'm thinking one in Anderson. Was that in the summer?
That was in the summer.
That's right, we were short sleeve shirts, taking a picture. All right, well, I'll let you find a date. How's that sound for the summertime? Since, I thought it was sooner than later, so that would work.
February.
So we're gonna wait until summer to do it?
Might as well. That way, they're not leaving the school, the buildings and that.
Oh, but this is to update, it says the superintendent and the school board would discuss times and dates to schedule a retreat in order to discuss the process of updating our mission statement.
We can do that at a workshop.
Yeah, so maybe. That, I don't think the admin team has to be at that, this is just for us.
Well,
Okay.
how about
Well, we just do it ourselves and then do the summer one.
Yes,
With admin.
yes, let's do that.
February 22nd, which is a Thursday, looks pretty open
That's
prior to
World's
the World
Cafe.
Cafe. If it was
That
an
doesn't work
afternoon.
for me.
Okay.
Well, the 8th or the 15th? February.
We need a retreat for this, or can we do it during the workshop?
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but let's tentatively plan workshop. I can check in with Martina for what her vision was, if
Okay,
it
let's
was
just
like
do
a
that then.
longer.
All right, we'll hear back at the next meeting. How's that sound?
Great.
Okay. 2024 meeting schedule. We kind of brainstormed that at the workshop. Yeah, 5 to 5:45, and 6 o'clock to whatever.
We're still keeping the first and third though.
Yeah, that would be the idea.
the 18th of March is during spring break. I believe.
For our school board meeting?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Now, you know, I will be gone for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere because, you know, I'm living the grandma life.
I'll
probably
visit
have
with meetings
kids,
spring break, so I'll be here.
But how many people would that impact? 1, 2, 3, would that, we might not have a quorum. So,
4 for a quorum.
okay,
Or they could be, huh?
I may or may not be here.
right,
Well, as we get closer to the date, let's check our schedules.
and maybe move it
And
to
we
the
can move it to
board.
another, we can call it a special meeting then.
Yeah,
We'll
okay,
try to get as much done on the first Monday of March too. In the meantime, I mean, the schedule last year was first and third Mondays with the one meeting in July, like the 17th or whatever it is. And then Monday, first and third Mondays. Do we wish to stay that same way?
I think that's fine. I think what you would propose, 5 to 5:45 for the workshop, and the hard cutoff, and then the hard start at 6 would be helpful.
I
So
think so.
I would move to approve the proposed meeting, proposed meetings and workshops, with the change in that time. 5 to 5:45 is the workshop, and 6 to 8 is the school board meeting
And the first and third Mondays.
on the first and third Mondays.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Earl, second by Ms. Ossendorf. Any discussion, questions? If there are none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, Ms. Ryder, you might as well come forward. I think we got you for a while. To a degree, to some of it. Hello there.
Hi there. Lisa Ryder, Director of Finance and Operations. And we'll start with depositories.
Yes.
So the board packet is showing a list of the depositories for the school district funds for transactions and investment purposes for the 2024 school year, or calendar year. There's no change from past calendar year. So it's a continuation of this, but it is a required approval.
Okay, there's 5 investment firms there, 3, one of them's local, that's out of, in the state. Well, I think they're in the state.
I move to approve the depositories as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Ossendorf, second by Ms. Tipp. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Legal counsel.
Within the packet is a slight change from the past in the fact that we are identifying the primary legal advisor for the school district and then suggesting that additional firms based on needs, because sometimes you want specialists in certain areas depending upon the need, that would be at the discretion of the superintendent or board chair. And it does also authorize the individuals that are allowed to initiate contact with the legal counsel to include the superintendent, director of finance and operations, and the board chair.
Okay. They're similar to what it has been passed, except for specialization. What's the board wishes? Motion to approve?
so,
Motion by Ms. Schoenfelder, is there a second?
second.
Second by Ms. Rowe. Discussion, yes.
I just have a question about the motion. Is it included in the motion that who can, contact the lawyers? Yes, okay, so can I have that?
Read.
Please?
So you want me to read it? Yep. The recommendation is to designate the law firm Kennedy and Graven as the primary legal advisor for the school district and additional firms based on needs at the discretion of the superintendent or board chair, and to authorize the superintendent, director of finance and operations, and the board chair to initiate contact with legal counsel.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Electronic fund transfers.
So this is our means to move cash from one account to another as necessary, and the recommendation is to authorize the Director of Finance and Operations and Superintendent to initiate electronic fund transfers.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Rowe, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Bjornsted, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. On a roll. Corporate credit card holders.
I just reviewed in this last month all of the credit card holders for the Chase credit cards. And so they are listed by positions as well as the authorized limits that we have for each of those different cards. And so this is a process that we've used in the past to identify and record that and report that to you. There is opportunities in some cases where they may have a specific need that I may increase the limit, but then bring it back down to these board-approved limits once that need has been met. The recommendation is to approve the list of credit card holders as presented.
Board wish, a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Osendorf, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Rowe. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Financial advisor.
Each school district must have an assigned financial advisor. This is a party that would assist with the selling of bonds or the planning and organization of debt for current and future needs. So this recommendation is similar to the past year, and the recommendation is to designate Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors as the primary financial advisor for the school district.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Rowe, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Osendorf. Any discussion? He's the one that they come once a year, kind of give us an update on how we're doing and stuff like that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Ms. Robert, do you have more? No, you're good.
Okay.
Good job. Ms. Robertson, hello.
The next item is,
Might as well introduce
oh,
yourself.
I'm Ann Robertson, Communications Manager for Red Wing Public Schools. The next item is that each school district has to require to choose a legal newspaper for publication purposes of public notices. The recommendation is to go with the Red Wing Republican Eagle in Red Wing. And then I also wanted to just follow up because a year ago you'd asked me to check to see if our legal rate would match the rate with the Goodhue County. And just so that you know, the Goodhue County today chose to go with the Kenyon Leader newspaper. So there is no way we can match that. So what our rate is the rate that is going to be charged for everyone.
That's way the other end of the county.
Yeah, so.
Okay. A lot of papers, so most of our people have was the. Is there a motion to approve designate the Republican Eagle as official newspaper of the Red Wing School District?
So moved.
Moved by who? Mr. Omenfelder, is there a second? Second by Ms. Bjornsted. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Wait around all for that, huh? First reading of policy 704 revision. You want to come back up here, Ms. Ryder? You're up and down. Should just had to do this one, jump through.
So at the workshop, we discussed this policy there as well. This is for the first reading of the policy 704, which is related to the threshold for our inventory or fixed assets and the accounting system that is used for fixed assets. We are not changing the crux of the policy, but rather just adding 2 sentences that spell out and designate the exact amount of $5,000 for the level for which we will identify individual items that need to be capitalized as a fixed asset. This is a change from the past, going from 1,500 to 5,000.
Okay, that's the first reading. Any questions on the first reading? recommended by our auditor.
Auditors, yes.
Could you say why if there was that increase from 1,500 to 5?
So when we first began many years ago to address the items that would be calculated and recorded as a fixed asset, there was a $5,000 that was thrown out there as like the general amount, right? But if you had a smaller district where you were wanting to keep track of things a little bit more at a smaller rate or a smaller threshold, you could do so. And so I believe at that point in time, that may have been the practice that we established. However, as time has gone on, there's quite a bit of tails when you have a lower threshold that you have to then keep track of from year to year, and there's depreciation of those items and such. And so you do find that auditing firms will oftentimes recommend that people move up to that $5,000 threshold. And it isn't material enough to make a big difference in your financial statements, so it usually is the way people go. Mhm.
I remember you talked about the depreciation part of it, yes.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions on the first reading? This is first reading, thank you. Committee and liaison assignments. We kind of discussed this, bringing this forward to discuss at this meeting. Committees or groups that we're on that are meeting or aren't meeting, and do we need to have them, and this and that, along with, we have 3 people that are on the negotiations that are up this year in elections, and a couple of them have kind of indicated they may not be running. So we should probably look at getting some new participation on negotiations for this coming year. So keep that in mind when I call you, talk to you about what you want to be on. So, but is there anything, people that, we got, we have a lot of different things we're on. Are they actually meeting, not meeting? Do we need to meet? Do board members need to be involved in? Yes.
I was wondering about the teaching and learning team. Rachel and I were on that last year. We have been attending meetings this year, or at least my husband. So I wasn't sure if that was a committee that a board member would continue to be on, or if that restructuring looks different. So one of the things that we've talked about as a department was that a lot of the work that was happening in the committee could happen during our department meetings. We had not considered the consequence of board members kind of being left out of the loop. So if that is of interest, we could discuss like if we want it to be a separate committee, if you would like to come to our department meetings, like some frequency. Typically we meet bi-weekly. It's very, organizational and logistics, so that's why I was wondering if the board member was needed on that. I think a lot of the things that are important come to the board meeting, but if it's an area that feels like a great loss or something, we can.
That's something that you or Martina can just bring to us in a workshop or a board meeting, right? That was kind of the impression I got. This was like administrative, like more nuts and bolts, like.
I often felt in those meetings a little bit out of place, in that I wanted to make sure everyone was comfortable discussing everything that needed to be discussed, and if we were, us being there was inappropriate anyway, or made them, made the staff just not feel like they could freely have the conversations that they needed to have. I was concerned about that. I don't know that it's necessary, as long as, things are brought here.
We didn't really bring a lot of input, like it was done by the other people there, really.
Sounds like it's one that we probably can strike from the list. That's teaching and learning team, right? For the next two. Anybody else? Director, how about the technology committee? Are you meeting on that?
I think they've only been meeting a few times a year, and I don't know that there has been one this year. So I haven't been invited for less one. I'm not sure.
Director of technology, I think.
Tony Cushing's been one of those.
Is he? Well, we'll check on that one, how's that? It's probably something that we don't need to be involved in, and they can report to the assistant superintendent, or to the superintendent.
I was also gonna propose that I don't think we need a board member on the health and safety committee. That probably wasn't necessary. I've been attending those, but we don't really need a liaison.
Okay. Joint powers, as a joint powers recreation board met. I was on there for a couple of years, we never met at all.
I don't remember that we met last year, Pam.
They changed that
If I
whole thing.
recall correctly, like it essentially doesn't exist anymore, but like we still need to have, like the committee still needs to exist in case it needed to resurface, but like it functionally does not exist, if I remember correct. There was like a dissolution of it, but like the agreement is still, I don't know.
Yeah, there was something, yeah, there was,
It's
they changed it.
Yes.
Yeah,
It
we
no
should
longer-
make
Powers
an
to
ask
something else.
Don about it.
I put a question mark by it. School board, student school board member liaison?
Yeah, so Martina has developed, I think with, Mr. Fuchs, like the, student advisory council. So, and I have not had a chance to talk to Martina about this. It seems like that's kind of redundant. So, and Nat is functioning. I would be happy to be a liaison for that, but I don't know, if it's.
They have it well in hand, don't you?
Yeah.
Work on.
I can connect.
Huh?
I can connect with you.
I would like to see a student representative on the board at some point. I know that was something that was talked about, working toward that. I think that would be very beneficial to us.
Or at least see if they come orally and present or something like that. If they
Or
want
even
to.
be part of our workshop where you can have like a dialogue with them.
Right.
You don't need to change the calendar committee, because are you on that now, folks? Are you the?
Yes, I am on
Why are we changing that?
Yeah,
Mr.
Rachel.
Nemenich is no longer here.
Oh, so just,
One thing I noticed that's small, but I can talk to Lisa about it. Most of the contacts list a position, but a couple list names.
Right.
It suggests just having it be the position, so when it changes.
Yep.
Right.
Anything else that you can think of that jumps out? District Advisory Committee, that's meeting quarterly. Right?
Yes. Thank you for
more than that.
The other ones are, Minnesota High School League, we need to have that for sure, that's what we talked about. Community Ed Advisory, they're meeting regularly, right? I know that,
every month.
the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team is meeting. And, let's see if I got this right here. Do we need to put the APAC on here?
It's
Is that
on
it?
here.
What did I miss it?
Click on the last page.
There it is, sorry. I had my paper stuck together. Okay. Anything else? So remember when I call you, you gotta answer, because I gotta talk to you.
Do you want to list finance committee as a committee?
Yes, good point. We're gonna change the agenda, they didn't have finance. They're meeting weekly, right?
Yes.
Finance committee?
Just
Every
kidding.
day.
Just kidding.
Daily?
Okay. Just want to see if you're paying attention back there. Anything else? Any other ones? Okay,
So then are you looking to reassign everything and you're gonna contact us individually or?
I'll contact you individually, hopefully in the next, this week. Linux, we get it in the board packet for the next meeting. So committees will function as they are until the next meeting, if the board approves it, as they are. So if there's something you like or don't like, let me know.
I think just under the agenda personnel committee, it's, it talks about the agenda, the purpose is the agenda, but it doesn't talk at all about what the personnel piece is on that, so.
On the purpose, see that, Allegra? On the purpose under agenda personnel, it's just talking about the agenda. We should talk about personnel issues too. We should add that to the terminology under purpose. So, and we just probably put, however. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Records with the board, talked briefly about that. We talked about the last meeting, scheduling a time where we go into the schools for an hour or so and thank the staff, all the staff that are there. Normally, we talk about a non-school day. We don't have anything set up yet, but it started the discussion, but with Martina being sick, it hasn't, we'll have to wait on that.
We were primarily looking at January 15th and 19th. So I think we can tentatively say that those dates are on calendars. I'm just not sure which school, which day.
Yeah.
We didn't have specific dates yet assigned for that.
19th is only non-school for elementary, correct?
Correct. So I think we were gonna do elementary on the 19th and secondary on the 15th.
All this is no school in 19?
I don't know about Caldwell, but
I still
Sunnyside, Burnside.
high school is in session on the 19th.
No, they're not. Are you? Oh, they're not in session.
Yeah.
There's no
The
school.
The Monday's in session, but the Friday.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So that's because
That's
it's a
February.
grading period, so it's a work day for staff.
Yeah.
What is the, it might,
In the
is it February?
It's
It's
February.
Okay,
So
that's what I'm thinking.
Pete, no, they have no.
Yeah,
school.
Sorry.
Okay.
Elementary.
Disregard
Thank
the
you for
entire
clarifying.
year today. I should just-
If
Can
we-
we just say that out loud in case someone is watching?
Yeah.
There is-
February. What?
Is there school on the 15th of January? No.
No.
For teachers, yes.
For all kids, there's no school on the 15th of January, Martin Luther King Day, correct?
Correct.
On Friday, January 19th, there's no school for grade school, elementary kids? All kids. I understand that. No school the 15th and no school the 19th.
Yes.
Right.
January.
But Joshua, you said the
calendar.
high school has professional development,
It's a half and half day for
Right.
the high school, yeah.
right? So
So,
even yours will be,
Students, staff are, it's just like the 15th, staff
Yeah.
are working, students are not gonna be here.
right. But if you're having professional development in the morning, that might not,
We'll figure that out. We're not gonna debate it here, so. We may have to wait till February too, based upon getting the stuff ordered and purchased too, but yeah. I think our goal was to come when they came in that morning. to be there.
Right,
So it might be a good time to start, be there before staff.
right?
So, but we'll figure it out. We wanna have one or two board members at each on the 15th and 19th at either school, not 4 or 5, we can, but
I can't on the 15th.
you cannot.
I can't on the night.
All right, so
swap, yeah.
there you go, I like it. So if we can do it then, we'll get the word out to you. Okay? Anything else before the board tonight? Our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight, another Tuesday, because of holiday on the 15th.
I have a question, and I
Yes.
don't know if I should wait till.
Go
I
ahead.
just want to know, I adopt a student gift program. What is it? No, that sounds fun. So I didn't know if there was somebody who had more information about it.
I can share a little bit. So students, I'm not quite sure how they're identified, I believe through counselors that, have a need over the holiday season. They kind of make a wish list for their holiday, and then the wish list is shared with staff. So like, it'll say like 15-year-old student, pajamas, AirPods, things like that. And then so you pick that student and you fill their wish list. So it's anonymous for the staff member, but then the students have that for their own.
Oh, and that's just for the holidays. That's a nice program. I think that's very nice.
We should be probably included in that. I'd like to.
I'd like to too, and it would be nice to see, I mean, I don't personally celebrate Americanized holidays, but my kids do and other kids do. And so like Valentine's Day, you know, that'd be nice to maybe extend that for, I don't know, just like other things too. Thank you for the explanation.
And the other thing, I didn't know we had newsletters out, we could all read the so I don't look so bad at this.
You don't look bad.
So, I think it's important that we know too.
They're a joy to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
I think they're attached in the, they're attached in the weekly newsletter.
Oh, they are?
Under each school. Yeah.
Oh.
We can fill up your box though.
I am really glad I came to school with you.
Learn so much every time.
All right, anything else before this board? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by Ms. Rose, our second.
Second.
Second by who? Ms. Schoenfelder. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Where on the website can I find the calendar?
There's